Hello, and welcome to Startup Stories with Scaleway, where we explore cutting edge startups around the world and how they leverage cloud computing technologies. I'm your host, Ethan Pierce. Today's guest is Reza Rahim, director and co founder at Beagle Security, a web application and website penetration testing tool. Welcome, Reza.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you, and we had a little pre-podcast discussion. I'm excited to learn more about kind of the why and how of everything Beagle Security and how this came about. So, just to give our audience a little bit of context, I always like to start with a brief kind of elevator pitch so we better understand what you do. Tell us about Beagle Security.
Yeah, sure. Yep. So Beagle Security help you to identify loopholes on your website before hackers exploit them. According to available data, we have around 200 to 220 million active websites in the world, and vast majority of these websites are vulnerable uh, or there are vulnerabilities present in them, making it easier to hackers to compromise these websites and get hold of the valuable data. The responsibility lies on each one of us to make sure that we are not leaving any unnecessary loopholes, thereby making things easier for the hackers. So this is where Beagle Security comes in. Our product can give users an easily automated hacker's perspective on their site's security, and give actionable insight on how to fix potential security issues.
Hmm.
We are helping users and businesses to identify vulnerabilities, and we are also empowering them to fix the issues with detailed recommendations. When it's come to security, you should be one step ahead of the bad guys, and proactively tackling security in the way to go. And uh, that's what we help companies to achieve.
So I'm interested in always in how companies come about. What's the backstory? What brings founders to build the things that they build? Where did this idea come from? What did what what happened, or what was the story here that made you and your team and your other co-founders decide that they needed to build Beagle Security? Maybe there's some interesting anecdotes or just stories about what brought you to launching this company.
Yeah. So I think the story begins with how I met my co-founder. I got acquainted with Pratap through one of our mutual friends. During our conversation, we discovered that we shared a passion for building products. I had experience in cybersecurity. I've been working in cybersecurity for last 10 plus years, and other two international books in cybersecurity. And Pratap's expertise was in software development. So it was a perfect mix. Uh, we got to know each other, and we have worked on various projects together. Down the line, we started a cybersecurity service company offering all type of penetration testing and DevSecOps implementation services. And we have been fortunate enough to work with companies ranging from startup to large enterprise. We used to write a lot of script for manual penetration testing, and we thought, why not automate what we do manually, because that will help us to save a lot of time. This thought led us to study the competitive landscape, and we were able to find some gap in the industry. Existing tools were costly, but the enterprise and it built for enterprises and difficult to set up for a non-technical user. Added to that, we saw that a lot of startups and SMBs were finding it difficult to address the security on an ongoing basis due to the heavy costs involved for the cybersecurity works. And most companies don't prioritize the cybersecurity part, and they are usually left in the dark, and unaware of how vulnerable their website could be. We set out to solve the problem and create a product that made security easier and accessible for growing businesses. That's how Beagle Security was born. Initially, we started using the product internally for doing penetration testing works that we do for our client applications. Then uh, we moved to provide a private beta after multiple iterations and building new features based on the feedbacks from our initial customers. We launched publicly last year.
Okay. So I would expect that it definitely when we look at the very large amount of the number of websites that you mentioned, um, and the fact that today we see upwards of a third of those websites are running on WordPress, and then there's all kinds of other platforms that are you know being used to run whether it's blogs or e-commerce websites or whatever that might happen to be. People are using all kinds of themes that they find, all kinds of plugins. Maybe they're building stuff using snippets of code that they kind of picked from all over the internet, which means I would guess that creates a scenario where there are a lot of potential weaknesses that they are unaware of, or especially if things aren't kept updated or things like that over time. Could you tell us a little bit more about the technology behind what you do at Beagle and how that works?
Uh, uh, Actually, we use a microservice service architecture for our product. We have built the product entirely in house. In terms of how it works, we simulating exactly how a penetration tester is done and doing the work. It is done an automation. It's completely automated. Actually, usually manual penetration tests can cost around $4,000 to $30,000, depending on the size of the website and scope and methodology of testing. It can take around 2 to 3 weeks to get it finished. We are providing the same results in about at a few hours to 2 days. We have built an enterprise grade solution powered by an AI engine that our team have been continually improving on. Bigger security work with all type of websites, as you mentioned, all type of website and frameworks, and is able to detect attacks, attack vectors, most vulnerable scanners fail to detect. We have uh, continually updated vulnerability database with a team of dedicated security researchers working on finding and adding latest exploits. And actually, we follow a vast open web application security project and SANS security standards for vulnerability reporting and and we check around 3,000 plus and growing list of vulnerabilities and build custom test cases on the go during the test based on technology and framework of the website.
So there are a lot of different platforms out there that do similar things. You even have on your website, you have a comparison to show how you are different from things like Probly or Intruder, Tinfoil, Crash Test, stuff like that. What is it that distinguishes Beagle from its competition, and why would companies who are looking at the options that they have in front of them, why would they make the smart decision to come work with Beagle?
Yeah. Regarding the competition, and before I dive into the specifics, a quick stats we see that the cybersecurity market is projected to reach around 248 billion by 2023. But as of now, only 31% of the total addressable market is being addressed. So there is actually enough room for everyone to coexist, considering the fact that the number of players in the space is very less. In terms of competition, we are actually addressing a very sweet spot. Like our primary focus is on SMBs. There are many enterprise tools in the market. These are very expensive for SMBs, and they cannot afford them in the long run. And other thing is the fact that when it comes to the tool that cater the SMB audience, what they do is just vulnerability scanning. We clearly differentiate from vulnerability scanners as we do a more in-depth penetration test and detect vulnerabilities, um, and additionally we test the exploitability of the of each discovered vulnerability to help customer understand how deep their website can be hacked. So vulnerability scanners do a very conservative scan and provide the result in a few minutes of maybe 2 3 hours. We are most interested in maintaining the quality and providing the best coverage for testing. On Beagle security, it can take around longer than hours to make maybe to 1 or 2 days. We optimize for coverage and quality and see if as the key differentiator and update on the result vulnerability scanners provide. In addition to that, we have an AI system built into the product to cut down the false positive and also improve the test case selection and has a decision making capacity similar to that of a human penetration tester. We also utilize a supervised learning system. So in the initial stage, we will check for the quality of the system to understand the efficiency and what needs improvement.
So I was looking through the website and had seen lots of information about the different kinds of companies that could potentially work with you and that you could help. You call out things like especially SaaS platforms, software as a service. You mentioned fintech and health tech, education, e-commerce companies. What are the if I was if someone is listening to this podcast and they're asking themselves, why should I or should does this apply to me? Should I do this? What kind of companies do you think should call you and that would benefit the most from this kind of analysis?
We see SaaS companies getting the best value out of Beagle security since they keep building new features and have faster release cycles. They also need continuous security testing to be part of their workflow. So by integrating Beagle security with the DevOps workflow, SaaS companies are able to find and fix security issues earlier in their development process or in the SDLC. This is not just a case of SaaS companies. All companies with us that follow a DevOps process use Beagle to do the scan the security testing in their SDLC. So it's more about elevating the DevOps to DevSecOps. Uh, then we have enterprises. Some of the companies are enterprises that use our product for first level of security testing. This allow their in-house security team to focus on business logic testing and other advanced scenarios or advanced test cases that need the close attention and manual intervention. We also provide our manual penetration testing services for the enterprises. And then there is agencies, consultants, and freelancers onboarding with us who use the product to provide penetration testing services for their clients. A lot of small businesses, especially e-commerce and startups in the mix as well, who use Beagle to stay ahead of the latest cyber threats.
And so I think any of the companies that like the different kinds that you've mentioned, if somebody's listening to this and they want to know more or want to just want to find out if they need to do more testing or be more concerned about the security, you have a free testing option on your website where people can go and put in their website address and verify their ownership of that domain and then get a test report that shows some of the vulnerabilities, correct?
Yes, exactly. We have a free test per month plan, but that is mainly the free tests cover only the basic tests. For in-depth tests that we need to get a paid plan. But as you mentioned, for a company, they need to test our tool or they just need to validate the website in an initial level. They can use our free plan.
Hmm. I think that's really useful because a lot of people before they actually have their applications or their infrastructure analyzed for cybersecurity issues, they usually think they probably don't have much to worry about. And as soon as someone starts looking, they usually find lots of things. So I think getting somebody started, at least looking at potential vulnerabilities, is always a great value add. And I'm sure that helps. People decide that they need to do even more investigation about the stability and security of their applications or tools. So Obviously you're running, this is the startup stories with Scaleway, so you're running a lot of this infrastructure in the cloud. Uh, Along the lines of cloud computing, what are your needs to create, obviously, this platform that you mentioned the AI engine? We've got all these automated processes that are running to scan all the different ports and activities of a specific app or website. What are the specific needs that you need in terms of infrastructure to scale something like Beagle?
Yeah, like we have multiple Kubernetes clusters that need high computing power as we use various AI training modules as part of our infrastructure. Uh, and also, we need to scale our backend infrastructure as well as going in for when we moving forward. We have to scale the infrastructure. Scalability is definitely what we look into first in terms of an infrastructure partnership. In some cases, we might need to scale up quickly, like when we do a onboarding quick onboarding plan, or running some marketing campaign. We have to scale up very quickly. As you mentioned, the testing procedure is resource intensive. We also need reliability, like we need to be sure that our service is up and running all the time. Partnering with Scaleway give us access to raised resources, like to scale, and additionally access to some amazing people and community of fellow startups. We think it's an amazing match because we see the same value here. Scaleway prioritize like the performance, just like us. We had a chat with our program lead, and that conversation gave us so much information about the kind of support Scaleway is extending to startups. That's a great thing about Scaleway, and what we see as a great positive is that we have everything we need to scale under one roof, and moreover, with the level of customization and control we would need, uh, be it like GPU instances, bare metal cloud services, or load balancing, etc. Yeah, etc. Everything is available in one umbrella. It's all available, ready for deployment, and when the demand arises, and optimized according to our needs. That's a big advantage of Scaleway.
Well, the one of the things that I find really interesting also about the partnership between Beagle and the startup program at Scaleway is that Scaleway historically is one of the largest French hosting and cloud computing companies, becoming one of Europe's most important and leading companies in that space. A lot of people choosing Scaleway are in European markets or European startups looking for GDPR compliance and
Yes,
kind of this idea of European cloud computing sovereignty. But what's interesting here is that you're in India. So, as an Indian startup, there's a lot of options out there, and I'm convinced as to why you ended up at Scaleway. But I think it's interesting why an Indian startup. What brought you to Scaleway and what convinced you? You mentioned so many great things here about scalability and reliability. I think there's a culture also of curiosity at Scaleway that fits very well with Beagle and trying to figure out problems around what's broken, what needs fixed, and things like that. But I'm curious as to how you came to discover and choose Scaleway.
yeah, of course, the GDPR is a great important thing as well. Like we are also planning to comply with GDPR, as most of our customers is in from US and European markets. So we have to make sure that we are also compliant with GDPR. So our data is a priority, right? So as we can host or depend on a European uh, provider, infrastructure provider is a big advantage for us. That's one
So
thing.
so I'm interested then next steps. What's coming? What's in the pipeline? What big stuff's going to happen for Beagle in the next months and year?
Like as of today, we have around 80 customers from 80 plus countries across the world. And so we focusing obviously to continue the momentum to keep and go on go into our prime markets, like Europe and the US. in terms of product, we are also continuously listening to our customer, and building features that they want. Like we want to keep on improving the product, and there are some really good things planning for this year. And moving forward, we want to build more products like for growing businesses to address their concerns, and we want to continue empowering the businesses to proactively tackle cyber threats in an ever changing world. Our goal is to introduce a suite of cybersecurity products that cater to every need of a business. Like maybe we'll be, as of now, we released a product that address the web application penetration testing or web application security part. More will be in the pipeline. Like we just released a uptime monitoring part with the Beagle security itself, and moreover, we'll be releasing the real-time protection, dark web monitoring, and now mostly in email security. All areas we'll be releasing products.
Well, that's fascinating. I'm excited to see where things are going for Beagle. Thank you for all these explanations about how you came to be, what you're building, where you want to go, and the infrastructure that it takes to create a company like this. Thank you very much for this discussion, Resha, and I wish you all of the best in scaling up Beagle security.
Yeah, thanks, Ethan. Yeah, that was an awesome discussion.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Startup Stories with Scaleway. If you are a startup that uses cloud computing resources, be sure to check out Scaleway's startup program at scaleway.com. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or your preferred podcast platform, and check out all of the previous episodes of the podcast. Again, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.